thinking about just in general nonprofits, what are you, what should nonprofits look out for in the area of fraud?
I would need to really get Daniel to teach on this, but segregation of duties.
So now that becomes an issue for small time operations when you really, I mean, you have to have 2 people to open mail. And you get 2 and one's out sick. You got to get more body in there. You can't open mail without a second person in the room. Or we get pinged on this with the audit. And I think it's boilerplate, really. It's like an organization your size should have an in-house CPA. Okay, and that's just boilerplate. But the segregation of duties thing comes up because when you're that small and you've got a CFO and a part-time staff accountant, as you said, you're going to wear many hats in the finance department.
What's your budget? Is an idea of size?
9 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to have this difficulty with separation of duties, and that's really the culture of nonprofits, at least where I'm at. Is now I don't handle any of that. Of course I shouldn't. But you're going to have that stepping over one another, and the person that was running the front desk is back there helping to open mail because you've got to have 2 people and all of that. Well, someone told me most often what happens with nonprofits and fraud is it's just a little here and a little there. Never the big swipes of a large amount of funds or something like that.
Yeah.
But the segregation of duties thing is pretty hard for nonprofit, for small ones in particular, even if you think you have enough people.
We can speak practically about how to build it that way, but I can also say, and I can share with you a lot more information, because Daniel has experience, obviously, as an auditor, but then also building that out with a nonprofit. But I can also say, like in our space, this is a client example. The CPA is not sharing the P&L statement with the director. The director has no clue where things are at. There's many instances where things are not open and transparent. Another example: we took over a client, and they were a part of a foundation. The foundation had every one of the clients lumped into Sage Intact together. The clients didn't have their own file. We take over some clients sometimes, and even the CPA doing the books didn't have the client on their own file. Now, that's not as much about fraud, but I'm just saying, everything needs to be autonomous. Everything needs to be independent. In our space, we don't have signature access on anything. Read-only access on credit card statements, bank statements, the bank account online. We've had clients at times where the director thought we should have signature access.
What does that mean, signature access?
Where you can actually sign checks and have access to spend the money versus just visibility only. And so what we see is sometimes there's wonderful people that have been doing the work. They just don't know.
So meaning they're paying the bill, they can do that. They can't write new charges with that same card.
Correct.
More clerical. Gotcha.
Yeah, they are, they have the authority to spend money out of the organization. Mm-hmm. Where if you have read-only access, you can't do any of that.
Correct.
All you can do is just queue it up.
Yeah.
All you can do is just read it and reconcile it. Yeah, putting those checks and balances in place. And I know what most, it's not malicious most all the time. It's just a lack of experience or lack of forethought to really try to set the organization up in an autonomous, independent way. What else? Thank you, John, on that, and I'll get you more information, just a lot more comprehensive. Get back with Daniel. Does anybody have anything else so far?
Well, so far I use QBO, we use Bill.com, my firm, my credit card systems. We have all kinds of. We moved to using Rippling for HR management and stuff like that, and a lot of other things. I'm way smaller. We got $1 million a year operating expense, air budget, but we're sitting on, I mean, I've got, we're debt free, we have a year's worth of operating expenses in the bank, we're in good shape in those things. Right now, I think that the big thing is actually, for my board, getting them past the fear of having money in the bank. I think that the fear of fraud, the fear of something bad happening, has before we had all these funds in the bank, the fear of having something go wrong with it has kind of like froze them up to, we don't want any, if you're gonna write a check for $10,000, you have to have board approval on it and everything. Okay, great, well, you guys meet 10 times a year. How do you expect to work on this, $3 million real estate project that we're working on? Sometimes you have to just move faster than when we can next conclude a board meeting to sign a check or something. At some point in time, I think your statement of faith and your hiring process for your executive should probably, you got to trust your system that you put in place. At some point in time, we've got multiple sets of eyes on what we're doing. Everybody has, we've got multiple, I don't know, I guess checks and balances for expenditures in our system and things like that. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, how do I get this board to be comfortable withdrawing the organization to the place that they actually want to see it get to eventually. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in short, it sounds like God's really blessing your work. You are doing a lot of things right. Like the fact that you have Ramp, the fact that you have QuickBooks Online, the fact that you have Bill.com, the fact that you have a year's worth of operating expenses in cash, liquid, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of going, but it sounds like the board really doesn't know what they're doing from a standpoint of, I'm sure they're all wonderful people, but they're micromanaging things in a way that's hurting you and the momentum of the organization. And I know that you talked about two different firms on trying to make recommendations or check, but ultimately, to me, if we had a relationship and I would simply just off the gut say, you need a document. What are the best practices of a $3 to $4 million, $5 million organization?
Yeah.
Put it to the board and vote.
Yeah.
And they're going to accept that this is going to be, like, for example, the $10,000 check.
Yeah.
Like, why can you not write it? I mean, life's so expensive.
Yeah.
Think about all the time, the expense. They're hindering your progress.
My point of sale system for the thrift stores costs me that much annually, and it's like, look, we need to get something paid. We just need to move on it. It's not going to be an option of whether or not we're going to do it. It's got to happen. And why do we have to put these kinds of things to a vote? You're just slowing down operations.
Right. And to his point, Sage Impact, I mean, there's dumb decisions that get made sometimes. Like, I'm not saying this is dumb, but Sage Impact, it's $30,000.
Yeah.
QuickBooks Online, $70 to $150 bucks a month.
Yeah.
What's the reason? So I mean, I understand some of that protection, but I think it seems like you're doing a really good job, and y'all have got momentum.
Yeah.
But y'all need to address it holistically.
Yeah.
And they need to vote on it to cut this stuff out because they're hindering the growth and momentum of the organization. But you can still have this, like on Bill.com, you can get a signature with your board chair.
Sure.
With you for $10,000, and that goes into his email. Yes, sir.
Forgive me for coming in late and not catching the whole story, but for something like the QuickBooks Online and all these things you mentioned, wouldn't they be budgeted and voted in the budget? And then they don't have to, if it's approved in the budget, you don't have to go back to them and get
Boy, it sure makes sense, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we've got a kind of a board that's committed to kind of antiquated, just to the ways that we were when we were a lot smaller. You know, I don't know, I served with the Gideons years ago, and I ended up stopping because much the same kind of a thing. We'd spend, an hour talking about a $1,200 budget and how things were being spent. And while I loved their diligence and everything, and their faithfulness to the funds, I was like, you guys are gonna just waste each other's time. I feel like I'm at that spot in growth where we just got to stretch. I've got to stretch this board to the another level of growth, and because we've got, I'm helping them try and get their head around another $15 million worth of projects in the next 10 years, and I just right now I don't see how they can how we can get from here to there. I just really need to look at what it would be really helpful is to look at like other organizations' board documents and say, hey, what does that look like for you guys? What does that have? I don't know.
You're in Durham? And y'all's budget's what's this?
17, 18.
And you've been there how many years?
Me personally?
Yes, sir.
30.
As a director?
No, about 4.
Okay. How would you handle that?
Repeat it again. I didn't catch it. It's hard to hear everything.
They're $1 million
Yeah, about
in Bend, Oregon, and they have a year's worth of operating expenses in the bank. They have good integration with QuickBooks Online, Ramp. They have a lot of momentum. You're working on a $3 million real estate project. And he says, to your point, there's no budget, but he's trying to get his board to accept that they're in a good spot and they have momentum and they need to act like a more mature organization than where they're at. And it's holding them back.
Yeah, I would begin with the budget.
Well, we have a budget. We have a budget, and we get them. We'll spend. Our board meetings can go for 3 hours, and an hour and a half of it's talking finance. And I'm like, well, what if we create a treasury position?
Let me say this.
Yeah.
In our Constitution,
Yeah.
I'm required to have 51% pass.
Ouch.
Right for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, but
On the board.
on the board, 51%. And if you know anything about pastors,
Yeah.
they can't shut up. They're paid to talk. They're paid, to do what they do.
Yeah.
The point I'm getting to though is that you got to go into that board meeting with an agenda
Yep.
ahead of time. You know
Yep.
what you're going to do. You know what you're asking them for, and there needs to be like a routine. Like, for example, we have 4 full board meetings a year, and then we have a total of 11 board meetings. Executive committee meet once a month, effective, and we don't meet in December. But the point I'm getting to is that each one of those 4 major meetings usually accomplish something major. You know what I'm saying? Like in January, we're taking care of all the conflict of interest stuff and blah, blah, blah. Going into the fourth quarter, we're setting up, I'm going to present the budget going into that fourth quarter meeting for the next year, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
We work on the calendar year. All I'm saying is that when you got that structure going into it, and this is what it is, we're going to budget, I don't know about y'all, but we're usually running in the red this time of year.
Sure. Yeah.
And you get new board members in there, and, they see that red ink, and they start panicking.
Yeah.
But you got to look at them because you got QuickBooks, whatever you got. We use IXL, not IXL, it's some 3 letters like that. And and you can show them historically this is not unusual. And
Even pastors ought to know it, though, right?
I don't think they run in the red like we do. They don't have the
But in the summertime they do.
Well, maybe so.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting to is that just have a structure to it going into it. Don't ask them. Just say this is what it is.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do. And
you don't allow anything to be discussed that isn't on the agenda.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep it to the agenda. That's the big key, is have an agenda
Yeah.
that you're gonna do your best to stick to. And I get it, things happen and things come up. And, you know, we had a hit piece done by a magazine, a local, kind of a homosexual, kind of a driven magazine, kind of came after us. And, I mean, that dominated some meetings and the accusations that they were making, you know, that we're a slave camp, that we're blah, 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 blah. And, but the point being though is that I get it, there's gonna be those seasons, but there should be some kind of an objective to an end.
Yeah.
We're trying to get through this and this might not work for a board meeting, but for staff meetings and for managers meetings around, there have been times I said, no chairs, we're standing. Because it just gets too yippy.
Yeah.
And then you just have to say, I don't mean harm, but that detail of conversation you're dealing with doesn't need to take up all of our time.
Agreed.
So, but again, a budget's gonna save you a lot. But if you're, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was a deacon at a church, and whoever they had hired to cut the grass quit or left or whatever. They went out of business. I don't know what it was. And I had just come in as a deacon, and they were sitting there bickering over getting a signature on the check because it was so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long that argument went. It just went on and on and on. And then when I realized, I said, well, why was this not budgeted? You know, we've been cutting the grass here for forever. Oh, it's in the budget. And I literally slapped my hand like I could have had a VA.
Yeah.
You know, I said, you mean y'all are arguing about this? It's already budgeted? You don't need permission to write this check. You've already got permission to write this check.
Yeah.
You know, the only question now is who do you write it to? You budgeted $7,500, whatever the number was for cut the grass, whatever. But if it's in the budget, you know, and then someone starts arguing about it, well, this was approved in the budget. It was approved in the budget. And,
That's a good point. Yeah.
So how would you handle it to go to your board if your board, like if you're trying to tell your board, like we've got to evolve, we've got to go past this scarcity mindset to where we're heading as an organization, and we need to work through our relationship to where I'm not essentially having a stranglehold every single.
right, well, that comes from, and like I'm an expert, but the vision casting that has to happen, I mean, I'm dealing with something like that right now. I wanted to build a building, and I went to the board and I said, I think it's going to be $20 million to build it. And, you know, we're all, you know, well, now we're a little further in the process. It's looking like $31 million. And thank you, Trump, tax, tariffs, whatever, you know. It could come down, but I don't think it's going to come down a whole lot. But the point I'm getting to is that, you know, what do we do with this? You know, how do, you know, I realize we got to live by faith.
Sure.
We got to live by faith. But at the same time, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to at least cast a path. You know, this is the course we're going to take. You know, we're you know, another problem we're dealing with, we got to get it rezoned to build the building we want to build. But if we can't get it rezoned, then what are we going to do? You know, well, we've got this path. We can build a smaller building and make 2 floors. And, you know, again, just vision casting and giving them something to bite into and to chew on. And I get it. They're going to talk and they're going to throw, but if you give them the vision, you're going to direct the talk a little better, is all I'm saying. And that, yeah. And when I called each one of them individually, and I told them that new number. And I was shocked. One of them, the newest one, he literally said to me, he said, well, that's a lot of money. I don't know how we're going to do it, but if you think we can, I'll support you. You know, but it, you know, and I told him, I said, you know, we may get into this and we realize we're too deep, and you know, we just have to back out. And for example, I'll give you one that went south. Thrift store, bought a piece of land. The board's constantly changing. Every year there's a new board. There's one coming on, one coming off, sometimes 2. And paid $900,000 for the property, for the dirt. The board member comes on. He was a grader by trade. You know what I'm saying? He dug for a living his whole life. he looked at that dirt and he said, "You're going to rue the day you dug into that." Well, the geologist said the ground is good. He said, "I've dug too much dirt. There's too much rock there. You're going to rue the day. You should, you know." He was the only board member that wouldn't go with it. And so I literally said, okay, if we don't have 100% unanimity on this decision, after we've already bought the land, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit and wait on the Lord. Since then, we've opened 2 more stores in other locations. And now that we're looking at this $31 million project, Chick-fil-A's come in and made us an offer for $1.6 million on that project. You know, the point I'm getting to is that just don't argue, don't fight, be positive, cast vision, and the Lord will take it.
Sorry, dumb question, but why can Chick-fil-A build on it, but y'all couldn't build on it?
They got deeper pockets.
So it's just going to be more money. It's just going to be more money to fix it.
He's not saying we can't build on it. What he's saying is there's too much rock. The geologists are saying we can dig it with a bulldozer, and he's saying no, it's going to take more than a bulldozer. It's going to take dynamite, or whatever. I don't remember all the explanation he said. But his point is that you're going to end up spending so much more money on it than you would think you would.
You're going to be whatever budget it's going to be.
You know, Rob, on the board, there's a Ripple Effect is a good program for board development. Don't say board training, because board members don't like to hear that they need to be trained. But we did it. I got a few people that got, and my board won't do retreats. They won't do anything beyond a 2-hour board meeting, and we only meet 6 times a year. But they did do that. We did 2 went in person and 2 did it virtually. But you're talking about all of these things that Rob's talking about. You're talking about a policy, a governance policy model, not this operational policy, where they simply review the past and rubber stamp it and have chicken and pie and then a few things after that. I mean, being facetious there, but that, yeah, but that whole thing really, and so we've been spending the last 2 years rewriting the board manual and the handbook. We didn't touch the Constitution, we left that as it is. But that just helps them to know where they need to go, and then it also helps them know how to grade you and evaluate what you're doing. So Ripple Effect, and it's very inexpensive, and they're now doing it virtually.
Yeah, when you bring on a new board member, I would make it clear to them. One of the things I tell them is that you have 1 employee.
Yeah.
The board has 1 employee.
Yeah.
That's CEO, executive director, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
The other employees answer to this. They don't need to be dealing with employees and bathroom issues or customer issues or something like that.
Yeah, we're good that way.
I think, we're right at an hour. If I don't know something or I don't know the answer, I'm going to find it out. I was open and honest about my role in CFO Leverage and what I see. And we do good work, but this was not about that. This was just about what I see and what we see day in, day out. And obviously you got organizations of all different types of sizes, and some people everybody's in a different situation. But the main thing I wanted to get across today is it's a very rewarding and fulfilling experience when you see directors that they know that they need to make a decision, or maybe sometimes they don't even know, but they get a curveball, but they lean into it, and then they take advantage of the right people, the right systems, and then it gives them back margin, and it gives them back capacity, and they can make better decisions, and then also things are more streamlined and they're in a better spot for whenever that day happens that they leave. And so, like for example, there's a director, there's a director that I know and have a relationship with, and they lost their audit partner. I referenced this earlier in the mid-process. They were at risk of missing the state deadline. They got a new board chair that came in, and he just said, this is unacceptable. Like, this person that went in to be the director, he had no intention of being a leader or running an organization. He just loved serving people that were homeless in that community. But they went ahead and ripped the Band-Aid off They found the right solution, and now they have real-time cash flow projections. They got a new auditor. They're saving, $6,000 a year on the auditor they're using. Given their size of the organization, that's meaningful dollars. But they have clarity on where they're at as an organization, and now they're able to tackle some of these new projects and things like that with more confidence, because they're not always just reacting to what's hitting them and that they're not prepared for. And from our standpoint, it's just a very fulfilling thing. We get to see people that are good people doing really good work, doing it for the right reasons. But they get things squared away. And they're able to leverage all these different things. I mean, you listed all these different systems and processes for an organization that it can really streamline it. So that being said, anything else anybody has? Thank you, sir, for coming in late. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you, everybody, for what you talked through. Hope it wasn't a waste of your time. Anybody else have anything? Okay. You mind if I pray real quick? God, thank you for your love and your mercy. Thank you for all the men here. Pray for their families. Pray for this conference. It's the first time. It's a privilege to be here. Pray for the work and the staff of each of the people here. Pray for everything going on today and tomorrow and each day following. And just pray that we can feel and experience your mercy, your grace, your forgiveness. And pray that we can just surrender to you and obey you more, and just honor you and just putting your love and perfection into the world that we live in each day. And thank you for just so many people here that are wise and have years on them that have been walking faithfully with you for a long time.